So today we're working on the crochet wire bead necklace, and you're going to be using 28 gauge wire, and you need to, for each necklace, measure out 3 yards of wire. So I have the 28 gauge here, which is very thin, and you need 3 yards. And you can either eyeball that, or you can measure it with your yardstick. And then you're going to add beads to one side. So we'll be adding beads. Now the other side you're going to need to tape. So let me show you how to tape. You just grab a little piece of Scotch tape and you run it on the end. And then you fold it on itself, and that will keep your beads from falling off. So it'll hold your beads on there. So one side will be taped and the other side will not. And you can add 30 to 35 beads. You can add more if you think that you want a full look. So the first step in creating the crocheted wire necklace is to get your 28 gauge wire and to make a slip knot. And the way that we're going to do that is to put the wire in the front of our hand and then wrap around our hand. And then we're going to pull that through the back and up. And that little spot there is the slip knot. And we put our crochet hook into it, and then we tighten it down. And that is the first stitch. We have the short end and the long end mixed up now, so we need to switch them around. So we're going to put the short end to the right and the long end to the left. And that's how we're going to get started. Now we need to crochet a couple of stitches, and to do that we're going to loop over the top and then go down, grab that, and pull it through. You always hold the short end when you're pulling through. We'll do that again. Loop over the top, reach in and pull through. So now we have 2 stitches. We're going to make one more before we add a bead. Here's the 3rd stitch. Okay, now we want to add a bead in. So we're reaching over to where our beads are loaded. We're bringing a bead forward. And we're going to put it up behind the crochet hook. Right there. We're going to loop over just like we did before. It's the exact same stitch. And we're going to pull it through. And now you have a bead in there. And you can keep going with your stitches from there. Then you just keep adding beads, and in between your beads you're going to do loops that don't have any beads on them, and you can even add 2 beads at one time, so we'll do that in the next stitch. And if you get a stitch that's not going through easily, just back it up and it will get better. So right now I'm going to try to put 2 beads in. So I've got 2 on there and I've looped the wire around and they're caught. And then I'm just going to pull that through. So it's really no different than every other stitch. You just happen to catch 2 beads instead of 1. So keep going until you get the length that you want, and you can keep trying this on until you get the length that you want. And remember, you're going to add a little bit of, you're going to add a clasp, so that's going to be a little bit of length as well. So when you get to the end, we're going to cut off the beads that you have left right here. So cut off the beads and the tape, and then we're going to wire this back, and we're going to add a clasp as we wire it back. When you get to the point where you've measured it and you like the length, add 3 more stitches that don't have any beads, and then get rid of the beads that are on the end. So just take your tape off and get rid of any excess beads that you may have. Now we're going to show you how to put a clasp on this end right here. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we tie this into a knot. So you're going to have to weave this back through the last stitch, and that will make it tight. And this is a little tricky, and of course, you know, you do want to keep the wire from kinking if possible. I have a really short end here so that you can see it on the video, but you should really have a longer end there. So now that I've tightened that down, I can pull that off, and this is now loose. And this wire here is the wire we're going to use to attach the end. So now you can take it off the crochet hook, and it's time to add the clasp. So we want the clasp to come in right here. You've got two parts, the hook and the eye. So just feed that onto your wire, and then when you get down to the place where you want it to connect, just fold it over. And now we're going to wrap right here. Just gently wrap. And remember, this is very delicate wire, so you really don't want to create any kinks in this as you're doing it. And after you've wrapped a few times, you're now going to feed the wire back through. So you're going to kind of sew it back through these stitches here. So you'll just pick the end of the wire up and you'll move back through, one stitch at a time. And this creates a nice finish to the necklace, and it also increases the structural, you know, strength of the piece too. So it's a great way to do it. If you get any kinks as you're going, try to work them out. They'll come out as you go. And when you get to the very end, try to wrap this through a bead, because you want the short end of the wire to actually end in a bead, because that'll be even more structurally sound. So see how I've gone through the bead on one side, and now I can go back through it this way. And it's really nice to have the wire actually end up inside that bead, because then it's not likely to scratch you. So there's one end that's complete. And on the other end you do the same process, but you add the hook part of the toggle clasp. And then you're done. Voila! You have your beautiful wire, bead, and choker, wire and bead choker necklace.